Hello friends, this is Roxanne, and today, I'm going to recap the 6th part of the anime called Demon Slayer Season 2. Spoilers ahead, watch out, and take care. Running across the rooftops, Tengen reaches the Kirimi's section of Yoshiwara. He quickly sees his unconscious wife Hinatsuru, still bound by demonic sashes. He frees her, gives Hinatsuru an antidote to help recover her as she apologizes. She states that she suspected Varabi-hime to be a demon but that she soon became suspicious of her too. She adds that she had drank poison in order to leave the Kyagaku house, only for a belt she was gifted by Varabi-hime to prevent her from contacting Tengen. Hinatsuru quietly begs him to leave her and battle the demon. Having heard the battle, when he asks if she will be okay, Hinatsuru silently answers before apologizes for being of no use. Tengen silences her and instructs her to leave Yoshiwara the moment the antidote works, to which Hinatsuru complies. He leaps across the rooftops of the district to scan for a demon. He hears something and triangulates its position, getting close to the ground and detecting the sound of an underground battle. He unsheathes his blades and uses sound-breathing first-form roar, causing a large explosion. The shock wave is heard by Daki, annoyed at another interference. She asks Tanjiro how many of them are there, to which he refuses to answer. She offers to spare his life if he answers, noting that their short clash had already damaged his Nichirin sword. Hearing her mock Haganesuka's craftsmanship, he rebuffs her claims and declares he is amazing. Another explosion rattles the district, causing Daki to grow more annoyed and declare she will instead kill him. Realizing subpar usage causes swords to get damage, Tanjiro admits his body isn't suited for water breathing and realizes he is simply stronger using Hinokami Kagura. He recalls a moment of training in the Butterfly Mansion. As Inosuke spars with Zenitsu, Zenitsu asks if he could slightly suppress his ferocity, to which Inosuke claims holding back is no way to train. Suddenly, they hear Tanjiro attempting to train with Hinokami Kagura. Though he successfully performs Hinokami Kagura flame dance, swinging again to try clear blue sky hurts him greatly, causing him to drop his sword and collapse. As his friends rush over to his aid, Tanjiro internally voices that he can't slash continuously due to its sheer force. Now facing Daki, he commits himself into using it, remembering Rengoku's word to set your heart ablaze. Tanjiro swings at Daki's approaching obi and performs Hinokami Kagura Raging Sun. Startled by the sudden change, Daki realizes his skills have just sharpened. Tanjiro charges towards the upper rank and uses Flame Dance, narrowly missing her neck. Daki retaliates by stabbing her obi through his throat, only for the Demon Slayer to suddenly vanish. She loses track of him as he had used Hinokami Kagura Fake Rainbow. He senses the opening thread at her neck and uses the Hinokami Kagura Fire Wheel. Daki reacts in time and swats him away with her obi. Suddenly, his body feels the fatigue of using multiple Hinokami Kagura forms and Tanjiro collapses. Seeing him on the ground, Daki rushes towards him, dragging her obi to rip him to shreds. He quickly uses recovery breathing, building the strength to parry the attack and escapes. She sends multiple obi at him and he desperately blocks the blows, realizing the overwhelming attacks are preventing him from dealing a clean strike. He surmises he needs to raise his body temperature and breathes in the style of Hinokami Kagura. Previously, Kyo had worried about his rising temperature and believes consulting Shinobu to be the right measure. Tanjiro tries to calm her down and claims he is alright. Kyo notes his temperature is above 100 Fahrenheit, having been so for the past 2 days. She begins to cry and claims that since something must be wrong, only Shinobu can help him. Realizing his worsening condition is upsetting Kyo, Tanjiro states that only during when he has a fever can he perform at his best and begs her not to tell Shinobu for only slightly longer. Kyo relents and allows him to not lower his fever. Tanjiro backs away and realizes his body temperature is indeed rising, giving him the motivation to use his Hinokami Kagura again. In the Ogimoto house, a girl screams about a monster boar inside, to the bewilderment of her peers. At that moment, Inosuke erupts out from the floorboards. He rips a hole in the floor and spots a hold leading underground, though it is only small enough for only his head. He dislocates all the joints in his body and slithers down the tunnel, reaching a chamber littered with skulls and covered in sashes. The sashes containing Daki's victims. he realizes the people within them are still alive. Before spotting Zenitsu's image on one of them, just them, a sash confronts him for entering the chamber. The sash having a face and mouth. It attacks Inosuke and forces him to defend the incoming blows. He slashes the obi and unknowingly frees the people within them. The sash, unable to deal with his razor-sharp intuition and keen senses, halts for a moment and tries to plan something. It hears Daki's voice, instructing it to capture him for his appearance. Adding the sash may kill everyone but the 10 most beautiful people. It speeds towards Inosuke, who swings his swords to slice it. Unexpectedly, the sash wriggles when his blades touch, preventing good contact. He tries again and uses beast-breathing 6th form, Palisade Bite, but fails to cut it. The sash decides to retake the people he freed, making him realize that he needs to battle it and protect its victims at the same time. Suddenly, knives fly from behind him and stop the sashes, thrown by Makio and Suma. The two slice the sashes up but the battle is set back slightly by Suma's cowardice and Makio snapping at her in annoyance. Learning that the main body of the demon isn't near, Inosuke realizes the battle might not end. To his shock, Zenitsu appears and uses thunder-breathing 1st form, Thunderclap and Flash 6-fold, speeding around the chamber and slicing numerous sashes at once. Infuriated by the appearance of another demon slayer, the sash remembers it heard 2 distinct noises, one being Zenitsu's attack, and the second sound is from above. As an explosion erupts from the top of the chamber's ceiling, Tengen emerges from the dust cloud and he rushes around the chamber, cutting all the remaining sashes. Tengen apologizes to his wives for being late and says his relief in seeing them. Makio recalls that Tengen previously wasn't like he is now and remembers her past. As a kunoichi among other shinobi, dying never scared her since she was expected and trained to give her life in battle. When Tengen first met the 3 of them, he immediately instructed them to think about their lives, to the shock of the young women. Above all, their priority is to return to him. To Tengen, how they should live their lives is first about them, second is being respectful citizens and thirdly is focusing on him. And to himself, though he knows to protect the public as a demon slayer, he places the 3 of them as more important to him. Unable to believe what he is saying, Makio talks to Hinatsuru about his advice, as she knows it contradicts their line of work. Hinatsuru reassures her that if Tengen is content with it, she is too. Tengen approaches them and playfully pats their heads, complimenting their work as flashy. Makio tears up and Suma loudly wails upon realizing Tengen does love them. He flamboyantly spins his swords in a display of skill and mutters. She then sends blow after blow with her OBs, forcing Tanjiro on the defensive. Daki approaches Tanjiro, as he tries to regain composure and order his breathing again, angrily calling him an ugly piece of trash. She sends her obi ripping across the district, forcing Tanjiro to defend her attacks again. Daki leaps into the air and 2 sashes suddenly connects to her. To Tanjiro's surprise, from the cave, the obi escape out the hole made by Tengen's sound breathing and fly into the sky and reattach themselves to Daki. Wondering if they're the obi he had previously sliced off, he watches as she absorbs them into her body while he tries to compose his breathing. He swings at the demon but Daki vanishes instantly, reappearing on the rooftops. She exclaims she was right that a Hashira has indeed arrived. As her hair turns white, she proclaims Muzan will now be proud of her. Tanjiro is shocked at her transformation, noting she has grown even more powerful, as well as wondering on Tengen and company's whereabouts. A man confronts Tanjiro for creating a disturbance in front of his house. Tanjiro becomes nervous as civilians begin to notice the battle between him and Daki. He demands they leave their geisha district as they all follow the rules, telling them a brawl isn't allowed and yelling they leave at once. Daki becomes annoyed at the man's commands and prepares to retaliate. Tanjiro sees this and forces the man back to prevent him from entering the attack's path, yelling for everyone to return to their homes. Without warning, Daki's obi slice deep into the district, cutting buildings, slashing the ground and murdering civilians. Tanjiro is too slow to react and is cut deep in the shoulder. The man himself loses his hand to an obi slicing it off. Injured Tanjiro can only watch in horror as the whole street crumbles to rubble and bystanders become horrified seeing the mangled corpses of innocents' lives. Daki begins to walk away, but Tanjiro calls out for her to come back and face him. Annoyed, she asks why he wants to continue confronting her, saying that the ugly don't deserve to live and telling him to die and rot together with them. The survivors try to comprehend the massacre before them, crying as they hold their dead loved ones and pulling the corpses free from the debris. The man weakly calls out, asking everyone to return inside. Daki's insults strike a nerve in Tanjiro, causing his eyes to grow bloodshot and making him seethe with intense rage. A few days previously, Shinjiro Rengoku wrote a letter addressed to Tanjiro, apologizing for his errors and thanking him for mourning Rengoku's death. He apologizes for the way they first met and adding that Senjuro is now much better. He writes that his own incompetence was only the start of his downward spiral, as his wife Ruka's death had caused him even more anguish, drinking himself into a stupor since then. He says there isn't a fool bigger than him. To him, Rengoku is a fine son unlike himself. Abandoned, Rengoku instead trained himself into a Hashira, despite only 3 volumes about flame breathing. Shinjuro comments he seemed to have more of Ruka's blood than his own and that Rengoku and Senjuro are fine boys. He then writes that Tanjiro himself is even more impressive as he must be a sun-breathing user, noting the mark on his head and that sun-breathing users are born with such a mark. Tanjiro denies Shinjuro's words about his mark, as his scar came from protecting his brother from being burnt in an accident and an injury during final selection, his scar ending up looking the way it is now. He realizes his father was indeed born with a mark on his head, but he himself isn't one of those few. Seeing the pain and devastation around him, Tanjiro mutters that despite the odds, there are moments when he cannot back down, as the world has those who lack human hearts and who kill without remorse. Tanjiro refuses to allow such a tyranny to exist and prepares to attack. As Daki begins to escape, Tanjiro leaps into the air and grabs her leg, preventing her from leaving. He tries to cut her head off but Daki dodges the swing, though he manages to rip off her foot. He furiously confronts her about the lost lives, saying they will never come back. As she heals her foot, Tanjiro demands she answer why demons kill far weaker humans. Daki suddenly remembers hearing these exact words and a vision appears before her. Instead of Tanjiro, someone else appears, angrily asking what they found entertaining and amusing about taking lives. She realizes the memories are not her own but Muzan's, due to the memories of his cells inside her. Back in the cave, Makio and Suma tend over the unconscious victims. While Tengen ponders on their next move, Inosuke impatiently asks about what to do next, as the obi they were battling had just escaped. Tengen angrily demands he shut up as they have successfully saved everyone captured, telling Inosuke to worship and praise him. Makio instructs Tengen to go after the obi or more destruction might occur, with Suma adding they will be alright. Tengen then grabs Inosuke and Zenitsu in his arms, before leaping out the hold and demanding they follow him. The 3 run across the rooftops, with Tengen leading. Seeing the demon slayers stare, Daki asks what is on Tanjiro's mind, to which he responds that she was once human too and have shed tears for pain and suffering. At this, she angrily punches the roof and blatantly says that she had forgotten her human memories. As demons don't grow old and need money to eat, they don't get sick and die. Demons have nothing to lose. She angrily proclaims that demons can do whatever they want. Tanjiro quietly accepts her words and accelerates towards her. She quickly uses her blood demon art 8-layered obi slash, ready to cut Tanjiro into pieces. Daki happily states that Tanjiro will die, as her obi is weaved and layered without escape, and she is far faster than before. Tanjiro suddenly uses Hinokami Kagura, Burning Bones Summer Sun, slicing a fiery spiral into the incoming wave. She squeals in pain as she feels as if she's burning from the slash, then realizes she cannot regenerate as quickly, though she notes that with Deep's wounds, Tanjiro's violent movements would normally rupture his body. Daki wonders how he was able to slash her in the beginning. Suddenly, she begins to tremble in fear, but realizes it is not her but Muzan who is terrified. Daki tries to overwhelm him again but Tanjiro is now able to rapidly slice and burn her obis. She leaps into the air and onto another house. Tanjiro chases her down and intercepts her incoming obi. He lands down and rushes towards upper 6, before slicing her neck. As her head seemingly falls, she mocks him for believing he had decapitated her. Her head revealed to be still attached by a sash onto her body. Tanjiro notices that with the sash being soft, it had blunted the slash. Daki resolves to prevent him from escaping. He believes that dodging them would create more havoc but becomes shocked at how slow they seem to be. He parries the obi successfully and manages to stab them all at once as they group up in one direction, pinning them down. He pulls them taut as Daki mocks him for believing he can slice them before she takes control. Without warning, Tanjiro leaps into the air and frees them, before eviscerating the sashes before she could manipulate them and making his way to Daki, who is now too slow to react to his immense speed. As his sword nearly cuts into her neck, a vision of Hanako appears and desperately begs him to breathe. Before his blade can make contact, Tanjiro collapses before Daki in agony and struggles to breathe. Daki takes time to mock him for being human, saying they always struggle doing their best and feeling sorry for him. His visions begins to cloud, unable to see anything barely in front of him. As Daki prepares to decapitate the helpless Tanjiro, someone viciously kicks her head off and sending her body hurtling through the district. Nezuko appears, enraged at the attempt on her brother's life. Tanjiro coughs blood and his deep shoulder wound begins to bleed again. Memories of her family's death cloud Nezuko's mind, infuriating her even more. Daki becomes enraged at Nezuko destroying her head, realizing she is the one Muzan told her about. She recalls when Muzan has visited her in Yoshiwara. As she lies on his lap calmly, he mentions a demon had escaped him like Tamayo. Muzan instructs her to find and kill the demon, describing her as a girl clad in a kimono patterned with leaves and wearing a checkered belt. Tanjiro eventually collapses from exhaustion. Nezuko prepares to battle her opponent as Daki answers Muzan's wishes to torture her to death. Nezuko charges ahead and tries to kick her again. Daki anticipates this, using her obi to slice off her right foot and left arm, before cutting deep into her torso and sending her flying into a house. Landing in front of the debris, she mocks Nezuko's weak regeneration, correctly believing she hasn't killed any humans. She instead declares she will stop bullying her for as they are both demon, planning to absorb her into her obi and leaving her in the sun to die. Nezuko emerges from the rubble with a new leg, stunning Daki as she notices her torso is also completely healed. As she watches her arm grow back instantly, she realizes Nezuko's regeneration has reached that of an upper rank. Nezuko bites through her bamboo muzzle and enlarges herself for battle. Vines-like patterns emerge throughout her body and a horn grows on her head. Nezuko turns to face Upper 6, emerging fully as a demon. Daki feels intimidated at her new appearance, with the aura of the battle suddenly changing. Nezuko speeds towards Daki and tries to kick her again. Daki mocks her for only being able to kick and slices her leg and arm off. At that moment, they grows back instantly and she slams her foot down onto Daki, driving her body into the ground. And this brings the anime to an end. Comment for part 6. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out on another video. Until next time, take care.